These are the notes over subtracting mixed numbers, and this is probably the hardest topic in this entire chapter. So pay attention, copy down these notes, and you also need to watch the Edpuzzle video that's posted with it so that you can get more experience looking at it. But there's a whole bunch of different methods you could use. Option 1 is the butterfly method, which is the shortcut that we've been using, where you like crisscross. And so you can use the butterfly method or the shortcut to subtract the fractions and then subtract the whole numbers. So the first example we have is 2 3/4 minus 2 1/4. Step 1 is to subtract the fractions. So 2 3/4 minus 1/4. And these already have the same denominator. So when fractions have the same denominator, you don't need to use a shortcut or anything because the work's already done for you. You can just subtract straight across and you get 2/4. And if you simplify 2/4, you get 1/2. So go ahead and simplify it and you get 1/2. Okay, step 2 is subtracting the whole numbers. So we have a whole number of 2 right here and then another whole number of 2. So 2 minus 2, and that is 0. And so if you combine the two, you have a whole number of 0, which you don't need to rewrite. Your answer is just the fraction part, which is 1/2. So 2 3/4 minus 2 1/4 equals 1/2. This one's different. They don't have the same denominator. So step 1, subtracting the fractions, 1/3 minus 1/4. Okay, so 1/3 minus 1/4 would be, if I'm doing the shortcut, I'm doing the butterfly method. So 3 times 4 is 12. That's your denominator. And then start here. 1 times 4 is 4. You're subtracting in the middle, so you're going to subtract the two numbers. 3 times 1 is 3. So subtract 4 minus 3, and you get 1/12. So that's how you subtract your fractions. And then if you subtract the whole numbers, you have 4 minus 3, which is just 1. Hang on. Okay, so combine the two is step 3, 1 and 1/12. So that's one way you can use the butterfly method. However, the butterfly method doesn't always work. So sometimes if you try to start with the butterfly method and you realize that when you get to this step right here, sometimes it might be like 3 minus 4, and you can't do that. You can't have a negative number. So if you ever start with the butterfly method and you get to this step that's circled and it does not work, you're going to have to backtrack and you're going to have to use this method. So the other method is option 2. You convert them into improper fractions and subtract. So 3 1/3 minus 1 7/9. I've already rewritten the fractions right here. And to change them into improper fractions, you have to multiply a whole number by denominator and then add the numerator. So 3 times 3 is 9, and then 9 plus 1 would be 10. So you have 10/3. And then the other one, 1 times 9 is 9, and then 9 plus 7 is 16/9. So now you have two fractions, and then step 2 for this is just to do the butterfly or to find the LCD to subtract. You don't have to use the shortcut. And we use a shortcut in the first two examples. Well, I guess only in the second one because the first one had common denominators. But for this one, I'm going to use finding least common denominator. So we've got 16/9. And the least common denominator for 3 and 9 would be 9. So I have to go off the graph a little bit, but that's fine. Rewrite the fractions with the same denominator. And 9 goes into 9 one time, so multiplying 16 times 1 is still 16. You really didn't even have to go through that process. You could just see they have the same denominator, so the fraction stays the same. But on this one, 3 has to be multiplied times 3 to get to 9. So since 3 times 3 is 9, you have to multiply 10 by 3, and that gives you 30. So now you have 30/9 minus 16/9. The denominator stays the same, so you have 9 on the bottom, and then 30 minus 16 is 14. And I already said that in 6th grade, it's okay to leave it as this improper fraction. However, if you wanted to, you could rewrite it as a mixed number and it would be 1 and 5 ninths. Or you could just write it as 14 ninths. So this last little section is the hardest part, and it's what happens when there's a whole number. So here you see 15 minus 2 and 1/3. And this makes sense, but it is confusing at first. And so the first step you have to do is to rename it. You have to turn 15 into a fraction, and more than that, you have to turn it into a mixed number. So you have to make this a whole number with a fraction next to it. So you have to break it down, and you have to think, what number plus 1 equals 15? And so that's pretty simple. 14 plus 1 equals 15. So your whole number now is going to be 14. All you do is take the number they give you and subtract 1 from it. Next, to come up with your fraction that has to go next to your whole number, you look at the fraction that you're given. So you're given 1/3. The denominator is 3, and since the whole point of doing all this work is that they have to have the same denominator for you to subtract and add things, go ahead and make it 3/3. So technically, 3 over 3 is 1. So if you combine 3 over 3 with a 14, you're technically back at 15. It's super confusing, but all we've done is take 15, subtract 1, and then to gain that other 1 that we took away, you make the fraction be something that equals 1. But make sure that the denominator is the same as the other fraction. So now you have to rewrite the problem, and you have... Okay, so rewrite the fractions. Now you have 14 and 3/3 minus 2 and 1/3. And then if you subtract the fraction, step 3, 3/3 minus 1/3, that's really easy, just 2/3. And then step 4, subtract the whole numbers, so 14 and 2. So 14 minus 2, that's easy, 12. And then the last step is to combine them, so 12 and 2/3. All right, the bottom 3 questions are your guided practice. So you need to finish the bottom 3 section. Oops. It's on your notes. You need to finish the bottom 3 questions on your notes, and then let me check it. And then these need to be glued into your notebook.